How's it going, everybody? This is Kyle LaFont here, and we are streaming on the Fantasy Forged channel here. And we are moving on with our second session of Adventures of Middle-earth. It's a D&D 5e campaign that basically started back, I believe it was 2014, and made its way all the way through 2019 before unfortunately being canceled. And we are going to be playing with this, and this is our second session. We're doing one-shots with all of our player characters, our 4, and so this is 2 of 4. Last week, if you joined us, we went over Valineth, who is a high elf from Rivendell, and today we are joined by Theodric Grimborn of the Riders of Rohan. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and introduce our player for tonight. So, Theodric, explain to us a little bit about maybe like your inspiration behind your character and kind of what you were thinking, like what kind of brought Theodric to life when you were trying to create a character for Adventure in Middle-earth.
Hey everybody, I'm that Tubby Australian. You probably have seen me around in chat, and I will be playing Theodric Grimborn of Rohan during these adventures of Middle Earth. Theodric, I guess, came to me because I guess we're all used to fantasy and high fantasy in the realm of elves and magic and etc. etc. And I just thought of, most of these characters we see in the movies and the books, they're used to weird stuff. Like Aragorn's like an 80-year-old ranger who's seen God knows what. And,
Grew up with
Gandalf's
elves.
Gandalf. And yeah, he grew up with elves. And, Legolas is a prince, an elf prince. So I thought, what if you were just a guy? Just a guy, just a normal guy who's never seen elves or dwarves or, goblins or dragons or wizards or magic. And that's kind of what I wanted to go with. Just a naive farm boy turned warrior.
Absolutely. That's really nice. And actually, while we were going over and he was telling me kind of his idea for his backstory, it really spoke to me as far as like, man, this is a character I would make. And so I'm really excited for Theodric and to see kind of what's going on as far as, how is he going to be joining the rest of the party when the official adventures start beginning in March? I mean, this is official, don't get me wrong, but it'll be kind of a nice look to see, we get to learn a little bit about Theodric beforehand. And so, kind of just to put the setting before diving in and jumping into this session, this campaign takes place in the 70 years between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The campaign isn't going to encompass the full 70 years, but the starting point is actually going to be 5 years after the desolation of Smaug and after the Battle of the Five Armies. And so Wilderland itself and the rest of Middle-earth are experiencing this time of peace, specifically around the Misty Mountains, that they haven't for a very, very long time. And so this is a time that's very ripe for new adventure. It's a time that a lot of people, especially after Bilbo's adventures, even people out west, including hobbits and all that kind of stuff, are starting to, take up the mantle of adventurer. And as we see, this has even have a little bit of some rippling effects down in Rohan, where this story begins. As the Rohan at this point in history had just come out of a little bit of turmoil, as it were. They had a seemingly tyrant king, King Thengel, who had taken power. And now with his son, King Thengel, some of the old prejudices and basically the instability of the rule of King Thengel is still at work, but there is this king who lived in Gondor most of his life, but came and now sits on the throne in the Golden Hall of Edoras, is trying to unite the Rohirrim finally after all of these years. And so Theodric, he is where he takes place is kind of right in the middle of this very interesting power vacuum where everyone's trying to take power and the seats of power within the Rittermark are opening up and all kinds of stuff. And as a young boy, he's kind of seeing this firsthand from kind of like a farm boy, son of a warrior's perspective. And so that's kind of like the general setting of where we have and where we're starting off with Theodric. So Theodric, essentially what ended up happening. Do you want to explain his backstory, or would you like me to?
You are the lore master, so I think I'll leave that in your capable hands.
Are you okay, first and foremost, because obviously we have some of the other players that are currently in the stream revealing information, or would you rather me be more ambiguous in some of the things that are happening?
It's fine. It's fine.
Cool. So, the story of Theodric Grimborn. So, starting, basically, Theodric, he grew up as a young boy in the East Fold. For those of you who don't know where the East Fold, it is pretty much the region that connects Gondor, kind of through that straight down the Anduin, to Rohan in the north. And he grew up in the East Fold. And his dad was actually a rider of Rohan. Unfortunately, however, his mother, upon giving birth to him, ended up perishing in childbirth. And so he grew up basically the son of a warrior who was gone and away. His mother was named Estrid, and she had plans, obviously, to raise Theodric. But Darwin, his father, ended up having to step down in order to raise his son and became kind of the town watch of the town that they used to live in, the West Fold. He, through the years and kind of the childbearing years or the child bringing up years, Darwin raised Theodric to, be a kind, gentle heart, a good person, a very loyal person, teaching him the basic ways of life. And around the time that Theodric, he was around, I believe, was it 7 years old, something like that?
Yep.
7 years old. There was one night when howls were heard all throughout the night air. And being the person on watch of the town guard, Theodric's father, Darwin, he was able to fight off an onslaught of wild wolves who were led by a warg leader. He was able to hold them off just long enough for the rest of the guard to come and fight them off, but unfortunately, Theodric's father, Darwin, had met an unfortunate end, and thus continued the Grimborn way. Theodric, ever since he could remember, he was instilled with all kinds of dreams. Dreams specifically of a wicked and foul creature, an old creature, that throughout the nights, he would see that he had this feeling, this gut feeling, that this creature was going to be the demise of him. And with his mother's death, with his father's death, it seemed that his upbringing was to be pretty grim. That being said, there was a young captain who existed in the Riders of Rohan who had become pretty close to Theodric's father, Darwin. And Theodric's father served in the Rohirrim with this man named Esmond. And Esmond, he is actually the captain of the Eored. And knowing that poor Theodric was orphaned, decided to take Theodric under his wing as an adopted son. And with that, being the captain of the Eored, they moved up to basically the northern region, East Emnet, where he was trained to become a rider of Rohan. And at the age of 12, he was given his own horse, the horse by the name of Baradoric, I believe. Baradoric, yes, Baradoric. And this is a very impressive horse. They call them in Rohan a courser horse. Essentially, it's a war horse that is given to the riders of Rohan, and whenever they are called upon, these are going to be the horses that ride into combat. And so he began his training of not only war and combat, but his training of battle under basically this father figure, Esmond. And with that, he grew up alongside a young woman who had dark hair, and she seemed to not be from Rohan, as it were. Her features were a little bit darkened. She had pretty much straight black hair. And this was going to be the servant to Esmond, Maria, who was from Dunland. And he grew up with her, and eventually Esmond had the beautiful ability to, with his wife, give birth to his true son. However, unfortunate events happened, and Esmond's wife had perished, leaving him to raise his 2-year-old son all by himself. And with the help of Maria being the caretaker for the child, Esmond grew cold. Esmond acted as if there was not much joy left in the world. His joyful demeanor became stoic. And with that, his guidance and fatherhood began to wane a little bit with Theodric. And as Theodric reached his 17th birthday, one thing that really stuck out to him more than anything, he needed answers for these dreams. Esmond was a great warrior, and he trained him in all kinds of combat, in all of the ways in order to survive the world, specifically in Rohan. However, he did not have answers of the wise. He didn't know what these dreams could mean, and these dreams seemed to plague Theodric every single night. About this orc, this filth, that in Theodric's heart he knew would be his demise. And so seeking out those answers of what is going on, what are these dreams, Theodric decided to go seek help. It is now 5 years after the Battle of the Five Armies. It is now 5 years after the desolation of Smaug. Word of the destruction of the dragon has reached all the parts of Middle-earth, including Rohan. And with that, with the relative safety underway, Esmond encourages Theodric to go up north to the city of Dale. The city of Dale, where a gathering of people in celebration of the Battle of the Five Armies and defeating the evils that lie, all of the orcs, all of the goblins, the necromancer and his banishment. The celebration is to be heard throughout the land, and everybody throughout Middle-earth would be gathering there. And so it was Esmond's idea to send Theodric up north, because chances are, if there's anybody who would be able to help him interpret his dreams and suffer and less, it would be someone in Dale at the celebration of the Five Armies. And so that's where we're going to go ahead and begin our adventure. Essentially, the way that the region itself looks is on the map here. You can't really see too well the region of Rohan. You pretty much get Wilderland, but right below Mirkwood there is the Anduin runs south and it goes off to the east. Right on the other side of the Anduin is East Emnet, where Theodric is from. And so Esmond, accompanied by a couple of his most loyal Rohirrim, along with Maria and Eomund, who is the younger brother now to Theodric, greet him as he crosses the Anduin and lets him go. The only things that he has with him are a sword that he inherited from his father, a horse head clasp which he had inherited from his mother, a horse which he had inherited from Esmond. And as he departed, Maria makes her way and pushes her way through the crowd forward. And she gifts Theodric a white flower. This white flower, Theodric, you can go ahead and add to your inventory. It's called Queen Blossom.
I am not seeing it.
That's okay. It doesn't serve immediate purpose. It's there, and I will go ahead and give it to you at a later date. But you have go ahead and write down in your notes Queen Blossom. I'm gonna actually have you make a lore check for me.
Ooh. Okay, lore check. That is...
So this is one of actually the new checks that are here in Adventures in Middle-earth. Because it is such a low magic setting, they decided to basically help the intelligence stat be useful by giving them 4 new skills, as it were. And so what is your roll on that?
That is a 16.
16. Beautiful. Not only do you know that this is a rare herb that is often spoke of and has seemingly healing powers, you know that it comes from the White Mountains down to the south, the mountain range that separates Rohan from Gondor. And one thing that you also do notice is this is often a gift that is given as a symbol of affection. And with this is your parting words from the family that you grew up with, the family that you knew. You are now in land that is completely unfamiliar to you. As you look north, you can see on the very, very tips of the horizon, the very bottom of Mirkwood. And so we're going to go ahead and get you on your adventure. So one thing that is really different about Adventures of Middle-earth from a typical D&D session is the adventure and the travel portion of this game is very important, and there's a lot of rules that actually go along with it. And so essentially what ends up happening is when you have a party of adventurers, in this case, it's Theodric and himself and his horse. Essentially what ends up happening is you have to take on rules. So travel rules are what those are. And each of those are outlined as such, if I can find it in my notes here. 1 second. The travel rules. Not adversaries. That's not helping. Not audiences either. Yeah, this is a really, really thick guide with lots of rules. Okay. It's a good thing you have a lore master that doesn't know what's going on. Just kidding. Just kidding. I do. Okay, so you have the scout. And so the scout is going to be your person who is in charge of setting up camp, opening new trails, doing that kind of stuff. Basically out scouting and doing their thing. They rely on the skills of stealth and investigation. You have the guide. And so essentially what the guide's job is they're in charge of all decisions concerning the route. And so where they stop to rest, where they go to get their supplies, and they rely on wisdom and survival skills. Then there is the hunter. So the hunter is in charge of finding food in the wild. Hunters rely on success with survival checks. And then the final role is the lookout. So they're in charge of keeping watch. Lookouts rely on their abilities in perception. And so in the case of there only being not enough characters to fulfill those roles, Theodric, you're going to pick one of those roles. Essentially, you're going to have normal rolls for all of the things associated with that. And then on every single other roll, you're going to be rolling your checks at disadvantage. And so that's one of the disadvantages of traveling alone is you can't fulfill all of those roles unless you're a wanderer. But he is not a wanderer. He is a slayer. And so I'm going to go ahead and have you of the guide, the scout, the hunter, or lookout. What are you going to do?
Theodric is in lands unbeknownst to him. He is at a state of heightened awareness, so he will be on the lookout for any danger.
Absolutely, and especially with departing words of potential comfort and a map, you feel as if you can generally do this. Basically, your basic route is going north. And so what I'm going to actually have you do, Theodric, is I'm going to have you make an not an intelligence check. I'm going to have you make a riddles check for me.
Okie dokie. That is a 14.
14. So you look on the map that was given to you by Esmond. You've made your way on the other side of the Anduin, and you've slowly started on top of your horse, Baradorok, slowly making your way north. You know that where the city of Dale is, this geography is completely new to you. But you know a couple of things for sure. You do not want to go right up through the middle of Mirkwood. You've heard stories of Mirkwood, and it is a very sketchy place. And you probably don't want to go up north along the Grey Mountains, as there are rumor of dragon fire that is up there. And so you find yourself making your way through Rovinion. As you look on your map and you study it upon your horse, you try to find what looked to be some kind of path that you can trod. But you notice all around you, very different from East Eminent, where it's rolling plains, rolling hills, and basically golden fields as far as the eye can see. Everywhere here is brown. Everywhere here is dreary. You have now entered the brownlands of Wilderland. Where this is there's a lot of it's had ages of flooding and whatnot. It's not quite marshlands, but it's pretty desolate. This is where armies in history's past have marched. And as you study this map, you realize this is a far, far road. You and your horse, Baradorok, are basically traversing half of Middle-earth by yourselves, and you have no idea what to do about it. However, you do see upon your map a village that maybe proves promising, kind of a halfway point. And so this is going to be your initial departure location. You are going to be making your way to the town of Riverstead, as it were. So you're going to be making your way up through on the eastern side of Mirkwood, across Rovinion, the entire region, to Riverstead, which is right here, which, from what you could generally tell, this is about halfway from between where you are to Dale. And Riverstead is a well-known place of trade, and you figure if there's food there and there's people there, life is going to be good. But now knowing where your location is, where you're attempting to go to, we're actually going to have you make a roll. So there are a couple of rolls that you make in this game. The very first step that you're going to be doing is you're going to essentially be making an embarkation roll. And so this is typically made by the guide. So this roll is going to be made at disadvantage. And essentially what it is you roll a d12. So it's not a d20 check. You roll a d12. And so I'm going to have you roll that twice for me right now. Take the lowered value.
Off. That is a 2.
A 2. All right. And what you're going to do, though, that's not it. That's not the only thing that you do. But what you're going to do on top of that is you are going to... it's modified as follows. You take your survival proficiency bonus, so your survival skill bonus, whatever that is.
Yep.
Add that to the value. And you're going to add half of your wisdom bonus rounded down.
That is a 5.
5. So 5 total.
Yep.
As you make your way through the Brownlands, the weather itself seems to change. It is now currently the very end of springtime and summer is upon you. And as you venture up north, you can tell that from the misty mountains in the west, large great clouds begin looming over Wilderland, making their way south. And within a matter of time, it begins to rain. It starts out at just a drizzle at first. And then slowly, it begins to get heavier. You pull your cloak up over your head, your hood, and Broderick does not seem too keen about this situation in your traveling. And at this point, you realize, man, my travel pace is going to be slowed down quite a bit at this with the constant rain that seems to be going. Days pass. You're going through the rations that you have, and I'm going to have you subtract 3 rations from your inventory.
Okay.
Fortunately, in the Brownlands, there's ample amount of grass to be able to eat, and so while you do find small shelters to camp out for the night, whether they're made by yourself out of your cloak or whatnot, your horse and yourself, Broderick, are able to avoid getting points of exhaustion. However, the longer you travel, the more the rain falls. It becomes unrelenting. Fortunately, it's not wintertime. You can only imagine during this time in the winter, the frost would begin to, bite your fingertips. But now, it just makes things incredibly humid. You are hot. You are sweaty. You begin to have almost these delusions, and your days kind of meld into your dreams. You have a heightened sense of focus, but you're not sure if the things that you are hearing, the things that you are seeing, are real or just mirages of your imagination. I'm going to have you make a Constitution saving throw for me.
Okie dokie. Is that it? Is that right? Yep, that is a 12.
A 12. Fortunately, you're able to fight through it. It's not too bad, and you're able to kind of keep a relatively straight path. And within a matter of time, even with your slow pace, you have now begun to see the southern eaves of Mirkwood roll into view. There is a gloom that comes out of this forest. You know from rumor, the elves call this the Greenwood. It does not look green. It looks dark, it looks foreboding. And masked by the constant torrential rainstorms, you don't want anything to do with this forest, and you will do everything to keep as wide of berth from it as possible. And so, thus, your journey continues. About another 2 days pass. So if you go ahead and take 2 more rations, you've realized that you're starting to run out of food. The rations that you have are not going to simply sustain you. And this is something that is worrisome, as throughout your travel in the Brownlands, you have not seen any signs of life other than the random insects that would fly about you. I'm going to have you make a survival check for me.
Okie dokie. That is a 17.
17. With your survival instincts beginning to kick in, you start to realize, I need to find a road. The Brownlands themselves, you can tell, are not very well trodden by by any recent feet. However, you do feel the closer that you get to Mirkwood, the chances are of finding a path is probably more likely. Ooh, nice. And so you start to make your way over to closer to Mirkwood. You need to find something to eat. You need to find a well-traveled path, and you need to, if anything, risk going for a hunt inside the forest, as it were. And so you make your way over. You fortunately are able to find that the trail is pretty good, and there's actually 2 days that go by with very little rain. But boy, is it humid. And as you creep closer to Mirkwood, you have this almost eerie feeling. And you are going to try to find a place to set up camp for the night. Fortunately, there are plenty of areas to be able to do so. You notice that there seems to be a bunch of old, kind of ruined stones. Not quite a ruin itself, but you can tell that these stones were moved at some point and kind of used to make a makeshift shelter. You don't know. It either took a lot of human beings to do this. It could have been a troll, or it could have done anything like that. But they've made basically enough place for you and Baradorok to be able to sleep, where you can get yourself out of the rain, as it were. And so you go ahead and you set up camp for the night. So while you are setting up camp and you're getting everything going, you go through your rations and you notice that you only have enough for a couple more days. It is time for you to hunt. And so you're going to do so. These checks that you're going to do, so basically your first hunt, is you're going to, one, try to pick up some kind of scent of any kind of animal that is in the area. And with that, I'm going to have you make a survival check. And because you are unfortunately not the hunter of the group, technically you are, but because that's not your assigned role, this is going to be made with disadvantage.
Okie dokie. So that's 2. Is that a survival check? I have that one and a 10. Oh, well, plus 13.
A 10 plus 13.
Plus 3, sorry. Not plus 13. I have plus 13 in survival.
Yeah, I would be like,
I'm a genius.
So 13 total.
Yes.
You look around kind of in the eaves of Mirkwood, and you are just like, I do not want anything to do with this forest. I do not want to go in there. However, as you do so, you see what looks to be the tracks of a small creature, probably likely to be a deer or some kind of elk. And so you begin to take off. It dips beneath the boughs of Mirkwood, and not really knowing any of the stories that exist of this place other than the fact that it's bad news, you are very cautious and you're very wary of doing such things. You have to make a decision, Theodric. Are you going to follow these footprints into Mirkwood, or are you going to risk potential starvation?
I have 2 rations left. Exactly.
Okay, so 2 more days of travel.
I need food.
Okay.
So, against better judgment, we're going to go after the deer.
So what weapons are you going to attempt to use in order to track this creature?
Let's see what I have. I guess I'll take my spear.
Okay.
That seems to be the best option here.
You take your spear with you, and are you going to leave Baradorok at the campsite, or are you taking him with you?
I'm going to leave him safely tied up at the campsite.
Okay. Baradarok is a very loyal horse. He's been with you for quite some time. You almost have this unspoken language with him, as it were. And as you leave, he looks a little bit apprehensive. However, without much convincing, he stays put and he awaits your return eagerly. You go in and he begins grazing. You don't have to worry about him so much as far as food. There's a decent amount of that for him. But you make your way towards Mirkwood and you duck beneath the eaves, and you are immediately overcome with this sense of almost suffocation. I'm going to have you make a wisdom saving throw for me.
Okie dokie. That is a 7.
7. It almost begins to choke you as you go a little bit further and further. You find that the tracks themselves begin to be a little bit more difficult to follow as it begins to blend in with the mossy foliage. It begins to get darker. So much so to the point where you can't really see too much in front of you. I am going to have you quickly make a survival check for me.
Okey-dokey.
And this is going to be made at disadvantage.
That is an 8.
That is an 8.
Yes.
Things kind of begin to start getting fuzzy. You're uncertain about which direction you came from. However, there is one thing for certain. You can hear something moving off just to your left. I'm going to give you but a moment to make any kind of reaction. However you're going to do. How are you going to react to this noise just off to your left?
Theodric is going to quickly point his spear in that direction and go, hello there? Is there anybody there?
You call out, and the words are almost muted to a degree. And it surprises you. You feel like you called out in a big, boastful voice, but it's almost as if a whisper is just escaping your lips. And you look, and you can see what look to be the dashing of feet, not more than 20 feet off to your left. You have stumbled upon this deer that you're looking for. However, it is escaping with that whisper from your voice. What are you going to do?
Can I throw my spear at it?
You absolutely can attempt to throw your spear.
Where is my attack for spear?
So when you're throwing your spear, you're going to be using your dexterity modifier as far as chucking it, I believe. Is that the case for the spear? Yeah,
I believe so, yes.
So it's going to be at a +1 in order to hit. This is going to be at disadvantage as well.
Okay. That is an 8.
An 8. You huck the spear, and you huck it with a decent amount of strength. However, it soars over the head of this animal. You can go further into the forest in pursuit, or you can attempt to claim your spear and attempt to leave.
I think I am going to I need that spear, because right now that's all I have. I left everything else with my beloved Baradarok at the campsite.
You begin booking it. You take it, and a young 17-year-old Theodric begins marching in a very unfamiliar terrain. So you're moving at a much slower pace than you initially would. And you eventually do find your spear, and it is wedged about an inch or two inside a tree. You pull it out without much damage to the spear. But you can also see that there is a slight trail of blood and fur on it. It seems you have wounded the animal, but you have not killed it. There is no body or anything of the kind. I'm going to have you make a I'm going to have you make a nature check for me.
That is a nat 1, but I have a -1 in intelligence. So that is a flat 0.
A flat 0. This is overwhelming to you. You're just like, I can't believe it. Like, your stomach's starting to talk to you. Your brain's starting to go crazy. You don't know if it's the fact that you've been traveling for so long or the fact that you're under the eaves of Mirkwood. It's just like your breathings, you begin to kind of start breathing heavy and start to hyperventilate. I'm going to have you make a wisdom saving throw for me.
Okay. That is a 17.
Fortunately, you're able to gather yourself. The darkness of Mirkwood does not seem to penetrate your heart. You have not gained any points of shadow, which is good. Very good. Yeah, it's not good. I mean, it's good, but it's not a good situation. What is your next course of action?
Can I make a... would it be a nature check to see if I can continue tracking the deer?
I'll let you choose nature or survival.
I'm definitely going with survival. That's a 4.
4. You're looking for any tracks that are possible. You're unfortunately not able to see any tracks. You are able to pick up slight hints of blood. It seems like with this spear that you threw, like it grazed him. And so if you attempt to go follow any kind of blood trail, you are going to risk yourself getting more lost than you already are. But again, it depends on the dice, and it depends on how lucky you are doing so. The one nice thing that you know, especially hunting in the Rittermark, is a wounded animal can only get so far, even if it is just a grazing, and it looked to be a young deer. So with those options on the table, it is up to you. Do you want to turn back, or would you wish to proceed forward with this kind of scarce blood trail?
I'm going to follow the blood trail.
Okay. You make your way probably about another 30 minutes deeper into Mirkwood. You've gotten used to your surroundings, and everything seems to have gone completely silent. You have your bearings and you have your wits about you, but there's a darkness that is slowly beginning to take you. I'm going to have you make one last survival check for me.
15.
15. And as soon as you're about to lose any kind of hope, you hear a call in the distance, the call of an elk. It pierces your ears and terrifies you at first. And then suddenly, you realize exactly what that sound is. The sound of a dying deer. You make your way towards the direction. With the general direction of where this sound came from, you're able to pick back up on the trail of blood. You go for about 5 more minutes, and then you see, breathing heavily, a deer, a fawn, laying on the ground, breathing its last breaths. I'm assuming you take it.
Oh, yes. Definitely.
What was that?
Do I still have my belt dagger on me?
I'm going to just assume that you always have it unless you say otherwise. Pretty much all the stuff that's just on your body, I'm going to assume that you have that.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to let this poor deer suffer any longer than it has to. I'm going to use my belt dagger to put it out of its misery quickly.
And you do so. And with a great sense of appreciation for this creature, there is almost a sense of relief that comes over you. Not only are you grateful for the potential of filling your belly, but the fact that your journey inside under the eaves of Mirkwood isn't for naught. I'm gonna have you make a animal handling check as you begin to see how much meat and whatnot you're able to collect from this creature. Um, it'll kind of just depend.
That is a 17 plus 3.
Holy
So a
smokes!
20.
You have done this before. You pretty much able to get all of the edible parts, and pretty much everything else that you need. I'm going to say you can go ahead and add to your inventory 16 rations worth of food.
I am eating good tonight.
You are eating good, and the nice thing is because you are traveling alone, those rations are all for you. Normally, on a normal journey, when you get rations or anything like that, it has to be split amongst the party. And so, the fact that it's just for you, you're going to be good. The problem is keeping it good and keeping it from being spoiled ahead of time. So, fortunately, right now at this moment, you're good. And you might be able to try to preserve it somehow. If you take a couple of days to try to dry it, smoke it, do whatever you do. But again, that's also dependent on weather too.
Excellent.
That's cool. You are able to collect all of the meat, and you say a blessing towards the animal as you turn around. From what you know, backwards is the way out, unless you wish to make your way any other direction.
Nope. I'm gonna stick to my gut feelings and my best guess.
Go ahead and make a nature check for me.
Nature. That is a 1.
That is a 1. You're lost. You're horribly lost.
Oh boy.
You make your way through the woods, and from what you can tell, I mean, you've lost all sense of time, but you've been in here for at least a couple of hours. And it seems like there is no hope in sight for being found. You can decide to make camp here for the night, potentially, or potentially risk getting more lost inside Mirkwood.
How far away from where I killed the deer have I gone? Like, have I been traveling for a bit trying to find my way out?
You have basically just looked around the deer, trying to find any kinds of tracks, the blood trail, anything, in order to something to follow back out, even your own tracks. Unfortunately, you're not able to do so. So maybe you've wandered 5 minutes past. So you can easily follow the tracks that you've made, kind of trying to look for tracks, but yay, you're not able to do a whole lot of finding anything out of your immediate vicinity.
Okay, I think I'm gonna keep on walking, I guess.
Keep walking? Okay.
Yep.
You do so, and you're starting to really feel it. The weight of the forest itself has begun to push itself on you. A little bit of sense of panic has set in as well, as you have no idea what's going on. It is, again, pitch black. All you have is the food that you have, your belt dagger, your spear, to your name, and you are just looking in every direction to try to figure things out. You make your way a little bit further, probably travel for about 2 more hours. You're starting to feel exhausted. If you venture any further without attempting to make camp, you're going to be gaining a point of exhaustion.
Okay. Well, with that, I believe I'm too exhausted to continue going. I will find someplace comfy to hunker down and make camp.
You aren't able to find any place comfy, but you are able to find some kind of clearing in the little bit of the forest, kind of under some overgrown roots and whatnot, to make camp. Fortunately, you are in your kind of a lookout phase, and so this is where you're going to shine a little bit. As you hunker down, you scan the forest that's around you. You begin to breathe, trying to calm down. You can feel your heart rate begin to slow down as you just have stopped, taken a moment to collect yourself. I'm going to go ahead and have you make a perception check for me. And this is going to be a perception check at normal. And normally it would be at advantage, but in this unfamiliar environment, it's going to be normal.
A 10.
10. You wait a little bit. Things seem calm enough. And so you pull your cloak over the top of you. And you begin to close your eyes and slip deep, deep into slumber. I'm going to have you make a wisdom saving throw for me.
That's a 9.
9.
9.
You dive into your dreams. In your mind, you're surrounded by nothing but the forest. You close your eyes and it's as if you had never done so. There's a humming, like the drone of insects that begin to surround your ears. And then you hear footsteps. It's not just one set, but a number of footsteps. You begin to smell something foul, something stinking. And you look up, and you see rising from in front of you a horrible sight. A black citadel rises before you. Half of it's crumbled and it sits on top of a bog.
Oh boy.
You can hear the screams and wails of suffering from down underneath this place. You gaze up towards the window and you see a green light. This light has a voice that calls to you in a dark tongue, a tongue you cannot understand. And sitting atop one of the towers, you see a greenish face and yellow eyes as they stare deep into your soul, deep into your heart. He raises a bow, he nocks an arrow, and he fires, and immediately you wake up. You're going to take 1 point of shadow from me.
Okay. Where do I put that on my sheet?
So that's something you're going to have to just mark down. D&D Beyond doesn't have a shadow point system, so you can carry as many points of shadow as you do wisdom. And I will say, actually, at this point, do you wish to use your Master of Fate, that feature that you have? I'll let you use that now if you want to do so. The Master of Doom.
Where's it gone?
So many among your folk believe that the destiny of man is determined already when he comes first into this world. Basically, you can reduce your wisdom score by a certain number, and for each point that you reduce it, you can roll 1d10 and add temporary hit points. Do you wish to do so?
I'm not going to do that, right? My wisdom score is already low enough.
Okay. So you don't do that, and so you're gonna just like hang out at your current HP value, as it were.
Yes.
But so you now have 1 point of shadow. You wake up. This is not a very good night of sleep, clearly. And those yellow eyes just continuously haunt you and peer into you. You rise. You have no idea how long you've been sleeping for. It looks exactly the same. No light has been able to make its way through the trees. But with somewhat renewed vigor, you attempt to make your way. I'm going to have you make a survival check for me.
Okie dokie. That is a 19.
19. As if out of the blue, you remember something. The tree that is directly in front of you seems to have a marking on it. This is, in fact, the tree that you had hucked your spear into not but hours before. You can kind of generally have an idea of where you are, and so you basically looking at that chunk out of the tree, you look, okay, if I follow my steps behind me, I can maybe try to find a path. And without much of an effort, you find your footprints and you begin to follow them out. Time passes, about 30 minutes, about an hour, and you begin to feel the breeze. You make your way out of the eaves of Mirkwood, and you can see, just a stone's throw from the forest edge, your horse, Baradarok, lifting his head and whinnying as if to greet an old friend. You have made your way out of Mirkwood, and you have come with food. So, you didn't travel too far in, thank goodness, but you did come with the food that you have. It is now the early wee bits of the morning. You did not get much sleep. If you wish to try to get a night of sleep, or at least like 8 hours of rest, you can do so. Yeah, as you do so, I'm going to just say you do it. So, not without much fuss, you're able to get out of Mirkwood. Your horse has snuggled its head up next to you, and you find some kind of comfort in that. Your friend, Baradarok.
A boy and his horse.
A boy and his horse. Fortunately, too, very little rain falls this day. It is a small pitter-patter of sprinkles around the early evening. And you wake up probably just at about dusk. Do you wish to move forward during the night, or do you wish to stay put for another night?
Theodric is well and truly done with this forest and would like to be as far away from it as possible by now.
You hop on Baradarok. He is fortunately well rested too, and with both of you having full bellies, I'm going to have you take one of your rations and go ahead and consume that. You are going to start making your way basically in the northeast direction. The nice thing is you have Mirkwood as a general guide, so it's pretty easy to follow. You begin wandering and walking. You have a couple intermediary days of interspersed rain. One day it becomes really bad, and there's a torrential downpour storm. I'm going to have you make a perception check to try to find any kind of shelter as the rain begins pounding. Thunder and lightning bursting overhead. Baradarok is startled, and you guys are freaking out.
Okay. That is a 8.
8. Unfortunately, you're not able to see a whole lot. However, barely, just audibly, you can hear, as if carried on the wind, the sound of a distant call. You're able to track that it is in the general eastern direction from you. Almost directly east, a little bit northeast. Do you wish to follow, or do you wish to continue?
How's Baradarok responding to this noise? Like,
he is not. So he's more responding to the tempest that you guys are currently in. He'll continue to walk further as long as you are there with him, but he is starting to get really spooked. And so it's honestly getting to the point where you are either going to have to start making animal handling checks in order to get him to keep going. But you're going to have to find some kind of place of shelter. You don't see anything on the horizon. The only thing that you have to go off is a call in the wind, which in your mind could mean two things. It could be a trap, or it could be some kind of civilization.
Okay, I'm going to turn Baradarok towards the noise, and we're gonna... Any hope is better than just trudging along in this storm.
Absolutely. And so you do so. I'm going to have you make an animal handling check, as he is pretty spooked at this point, but he is trusting.
That is a 16.
16. You make your way, and he actually starts to kind of go into a little bit more than a trot, not quite a gallop, as you make your way towards this noise. And this noise again, it's interspersed. You hear a couple of cries, and it begins to be clearer, and it begins to be clearer as you go closer to this, and it sounds to be as if it is a woman who is calling out to you. You make your way over to what looks to be a series of tents slash ramshackle huts. There is a group of 3 individuals that are gathered around, and one woman is doing everything that she can to keep the tent that she has over the top of them, staked into the ground as the tempest attempts to blow it away. And she is screaming and she is shrieking. There is a younger daughter that is also part of them, part of the group, and she's just crying and wailing. And then there seems to be a man. This man is doing everything that he can to try to hammer it back in. He's got this cloak that is over the top of him, but they don't seem to notice that you have approached, and they are completely concerned on their small tent that is pitched in the middle of this great Rovinian region with no shelter.
Okay. I'm going to... Theodric will dismount from Baradarok and rush forward to help.
You do so, and the panic begins to really set in on them when the young girl, she points at you and she shrieks, "Daddy!" And you see this man turns around, and he's kind of got this grim-looking face, very much like this 5 o'clock shadow going on, and he looks wet and he looks dirty. And he immediately pulls out what looks to be a dagger from his belt, and he says, "You step one step closer, and you will be meeting your end. What do you have to say for yourself for approaching my wife and my child?"
Well met. You kind of look like you needed some help.
Make a persuasion check for me.
Okie dokie. That is a 8.
He looks at you for a moment. He takes his dagger and he puts it into his belt with his hand still on it. "You don't look like you're from around these parts." He looks at your horse, this big, sturdy steed. He looks at you. You don't seem to be approaching with any kind of malice or anything. No hands on weapons, nothing like that. And he begins to ease himself a little, although you can tell that his guard is still up to a degree. Help I would accept."
Excellent. If it makes you feel better, I would gladly offer that help for free, but directions would be even better.
"Now, where might you be heading in such terrible weather?" And he is able, with your help, to kind of start staking these in. He has these pittons that he's able to basically get in there pretty good. And with the help of Baradarok, you're able to kind of somewhat secure tent as he lays down beside the tent to try to take some kind of cover. He invites you in, and you see a very nervous-looking 2 women. But he asks you, "Now, where would someone like you be heading in such weather such as this?"
Well, my end goal is Dale, but for now I'm just trying to find anywhere that's dry where I can keep my horse and not get caught out in this rain.
"Dale, you say? Dale's still quite a ways off from here. You are in East Rovinian at the current moment. My family and I are traders. We've made our way up from, the crossing of the Selduin, actually. We are trying to make our way south to Dorwinian. And then this storm happened to come upon us. It's as if fate doesn't want us making our way down in that direction, which I don't see why. Typically this time of year, the weather is perfect for travel."
It did seem to come out of nowhere.
Indeed. I do recommend, if you are to cross the running river, The crossing of the Selduin might be a good place. As I mentioned, my family is from there, and we are going to trade with the Dorwinians. But if you do also wish to take refuge, there is a larger settlement not too far from here, probably 3 days' journey. It's a town called Riverstead, and there's a number of people there, primarily trading. If you need anything in order to resupply, they'll probably help you more so than the crossing of the Selduin. But it's completely up to you. All you have to do, and he peeks out, shows you outside the front of the tent. You see this road, and the road itself is there. Looks decently traveled. All you have to do is just keep following this road north, and you will eventually find your way along the running river to Riverstead. And if you keep following this east, you will make your way to the crossing of the Selduin. Both places you will be able to cross, and both places will send you into the Nether Marches. The Nether Marches are decently perilous, but with good King Bard, he's done a good job of making sure the vast majority of evil creatures are away from those lands. All you have to deal with are maybe the spare wolf or two. But if you do wish to find a guide on your way to the rest of your way to Dale, either of those places you should be able to find one.
My thanks. How is the storm going? Is it still pretty much
It's pretty bad, although it's not quite as bad as it was like an hour ago, when you were like right at the height of it. The sky itself has almost become this greenish kind of bubbly texture. For those of you who aren't like familiar with tornado, it's kind of like vaguely reminiscent of like tornado weather. Especially with the wind and the rain and everything, but you are able to keep things pretty well done. And you can attempt to hunker down, or you can attempt to go further, but Baradarok does not seem to like that idea of continuing forward.
Okay, well, I think I'll just wait out the rest of the storm if I can.
Is there anything that you would like to do? Any information you would attempt to like to glean, or any kind of further assistance you would like to give them?
I think I'll just warn them away from the Mirkwood. just be careful. It's very very dangerous there. Very easy to get lost.
They agree with you. The father figure of them, he says, "My name's Ishmael. My family comes from the east. We have never made our way quite as far west as the Greenwood. But yes, I can tell that there are very terrible creatures that live in such. And rumor has it, it's full of orcs and terrible things."
Well, I'm the Theodric of Rohan, and it's very confusing in there. It's just, time seems to have no meaning, and you get lost. Just everything looks the same.
Well met, Theodric of Rohan. Well, if you hug close to the river and you stay on this road, you shall be quite far away from that dark place. And as mentioned, civilization is not far off. Just keep continuing what you're doing and keep continuing on the road. And if you could maybe spare some supplies, unfortunately, some of our food has been lost in this storm.
Oh, certainly. I have some fine cuts of venison.
Do you now?
Yes.
He reaches
why
in
I
his
got
pocket.
lost in the Greenwood.
He reaches into his coin purse and he pulls out what looks to be like a few coins. He says, "Will this cover it?" And he puts down 2 silver pennies.
Certainly. How many would you like?
Maybe 4 of them for me and my wife and my child, and with what we have, we should be able to make our way and find some traders on the road, but we don't want to take too much from you. You've already helped so much.
No, certainly. It's of no problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I gladly reach into my pack, where I'm assuming I've got them safely stored away in some manner, and hand them over to him.
And with that, you're going to have a +1 bonus to your arrival roll. So essentially, at the end of a journey, based on what your initial departure roll, the events that happen throughout, and basically all of the things that happen eventually impact your arrival roll. And the higher your arrival, the better the effects of what ends up happening at the end of your journey. It could be things from gaining inspiration. You could have rewards such as hope, or if you get really bad on your arrival roll, you could, for example, that was a really horrible, terrible road that we experienced, and now I'm getting points of shadow because I'm exhausted, or like certain things like that. But you gain a +1 to your arrival roll for helping them out, so that's good. The night kind of goes by, and you begin to share stories of Rohan. Question: is Theodric much of a singer?
No.
No.
No, he is not.
So
Though he wishes he could be.
the Rohirrim, a lot of their stories and everything are of the oral tradition, and there are many that sing their oral tradition. But you begin to kind of help to calm down the nerves, especially of the child, as you begin to talk a little bit about Rohan and this distant land that is so unfamiliar. And they look at you with intrigue, and they sit kind of waiting on every word. And without much time passing, the daughter falls asleep, and so does the wife. And you can tell that there is a pitter-patter of rain now left on the tent outside, and the storm has passed. It is the middle of the night, and the gentleman, Ishmael, he looks to you and says, "I can't thank you enough for your help. Traveling with one so young, especially in such terrible circumstances, it's nothing that a father wants for their children." And he looks to you and says, "You're not much but a lad yourself, and you're out on the road all alone, are you?"
I am. But I am a ruler of Rohan, and I've been trained for this. It's the life I chose.
Wow. If only I could raise my daughter to be quite as strong as you are. I can only imagine myself at... How old did you say you were?
17.
17. Oh, what a wee lad. I mean, he looks at you, maybe not a wee lad, but still a lad. Thinking back to me at 17, I could barely make my way from one end of the town to the other, to be quite honest with you. Wow, quite incredible indeed, and we will tell stories about you, Theodric. The Theodric from Rohan. Thank you so much. And as you kind of wrap everything up for the evening, you go ahead and you get another night of rest. In the morning, you depart ways. They start making their way kind of southeast, and you're able to clearly see what looks to be the river, probably a couple of miles to your right. Rovinian's a decently flat region, so you can kind of see it, and you can see a relatively well-trodden path too down here. And you begin to follow the river for a few more days until you start to notice that your north has begun to start bending east. Do you wish to keep at your distance, or would you like to go more to the river's banks?
I think I will be keeping closer to the river.
Okay.
Just, that's always a safe bet, because, people like to build towns by the river.
And that indeed, with that good intuition, you're able to see just across there is a bridge, and you can see where two rivers meet. There is a small settlement, about a town. It's less of a town and more of just kind of like a homestead to a degree. It's got a few buildings, but these buildings look old. They look like to be made out of stone, and they look pretty fortified. This is going to be the city of Riverstead. or the town of Riverstead. If you wish to cross here, you will be able to do so.
Excellent. Is it? Well, silly question. Yeah, it's obviously populated.
Mm.
Are there any? Is there any like noticeable inn or anything like that? Like any sort of place where I could uh, buy non-perishable food, like or even something like I don't know. Can I trade my fresh meat for something that's already been smoked and preserved?
Yeah. So you make your way into the town, and you're able to kind of just follow your nose to a degree, and you do so, and you see that there is actually a what look to be a bunch of traders that are around, people from all over the place. And so you're kind of being drawn in many directions, but there's one place that really calls out to you, and it looks to be a tavern. And you make your way through, you make your way close to it, and you can tell that this is a very well established place. And you make your way inside the door, and no one immediately greets you or anything. But you do have a giant horse that is hanging out outside, so you do find a place to kind of tie him up before making your way in. There are people from all kinds. You can tell that there's people in brightly colored clothing from the east, kind of actually similar to what Ishmael was wearing earlier. You see what look to be people with a more kind of like fur clothing. This is probably reminiscent of people that come from the north. And then you see people with two individuals that are pretty heavily armed, and they have like beautiful like scarlet cloaks on. And then you also see a gentleman who is a kind of think of like a Burry and Aragorn, who's like sitting there kind of with this pipe in the corner. He has like a beer in hand, and he's smoking a pipe as well, and he's just kind of enjoying himself, and more just people watching than anything. But you make your way up to the counter, and a actually dwarf approaches. Oh, what could I do for you?
Well met. I'm hoping to find somewhere where I can trade some fresh meat that I hunted recently for, some preserved stuff for my travels.
Ah, indeed. And he takes a look. Can I see that meat that you have perhaps for trade?
Excellent.
You plop down. How much of the venison? All of it?
Um, I'll keep 2 slices of my remaining venison
Okay.
and do the rest. So I had 2 things of rations, and I'll keep 2 venison. So that's 10 slices of venison.
Okay. We could make a trade here, or, and he thinks about it, for the right coin, I could smoke these for you.
Okay. How much would that be to smoke it for me?
1 silver penny to smoke these 10 chunks of venison. If not, we could go ahead and make an even trade. We could, probably not even. I mean, business is business, of course, right?
Of course, good sir. I think 1 penny sounds like a fair deal, and I'd be glad to do that.
That will take probably about, give me 12 hours, and I'll see what I can do. I have a very fine smoker that I actually got from way out east. There was a trader that came by up the river running, and they brought this contraption that does a great job at preserving meat, and if you have the right spices and salt, you could keep it for quite some time. I can go ahead and treat it with the best a dwarven personality can.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So now you are in this tavern and in this town. What would you like to do? What would you like to seek out in the meantime? Or are there any individuals that you initially saw that you might wish to approach?
The 2 gentlemen in the red cloaks. Do they look like they're some sort of officials, or
They look to be some sort of soldier or guard or something.
Okay.
You haven't seen anyone else dressed like this, only these two from your time in the town.
Okay, I'd like to approach them. Are they like sitting at a table or?
Yeah, they're like kind of sitting at the table at the very far end, and they do stick out, so like it's easy to kind of approach them. They took a look at you. One of them has very like dark hair, like almost black, and he's got like this kind of scruffy beard. He looks a little bit older than the other one that he's sitting across from them. Hey, what can I do for you?
Uh,
You are not from around these parts, are you?
uh, well met. No, I'm Theodric of Rohan.
Indeed. And we are some of King Bard's loyal guards here down in Dale, or from Dale, down here at the river running, of course. And we're just here keeping watch. We haven't seen anyone like you around these parts, and so, what's your business here?
Well, actually, just resupplying before I head to Dale.
Ah, Dale, indeed. Any reason in particular? The festival isn't for quite some time, actually. I'm assuming you're going there for the celebration of the conclusion of the Battle of the Five Armies, of course, right?
Of course, I'm
Ah,
actually. Word has reached far and wide about King Dale slaying the Dragon Smaug, and
yes.
there are many questions that so many people still have. So I was hoping to get some answers there of what actually happened and how it all went down.
Indeed, King Bard is a wonderful gentleman, and he, I will say, is a good king at that, and very merciful, very strong. Yes. And so currently, right now, as far as you're aware, it is now kind of, reaching into the early summer months. From what you know, the celebration of the Battle of the Five Armies is at the end of November. So you still got quite a bit of time in order to get to Dale. And that usually takes place at the end of the month, as it were. And they said, so resupplying, you found a very good place to do it. Between here and Dale, there is not much of places to trade. So this would be your place to restock before going forward. Being from the south, we've seen a few from Gondor, but never from Rohan. What news do you bring from Rohan?
Well, Rohan's doing a lot better than it usually has now that we have our good King Thengel of Gondor, who's come up from Gondor to be our new king. Things are finally starting to settle down after our last king and the troubles that he caused.
I've heard some rumor about down there in the far south of the prairie country, as we call it. And Gondor, we've seen a number of them make their way up through here. Those Gondorians always think they're so high and mighty, but their lineages of a Numenorian descent, they think they are all that. But here with King Bard, the lineages that we have established here for many, many centuries is the stuff of the Bardings. Those are what we are called here in these lands, the Bardings. We are strong, we are tough, and we are the Dragon Slayers. You can tell they're very boastful and like very proud of like who they are and who they serve specifically. And you can tell that they kind of like rant more on and on without like much like inquiry. And you can tell, other than the initial question, they don't ask too much about Rohan. Even though it's like really strange to see someone from Rohan up here, it's almost as if you can tell they don't know what to ask about Rohan. So, do you wish to interject at all, or just let them tell their stories?
I'm gonna let them tell their stories for a bit. Let them get comfortable.
And as you do, they begin to get a couple of drinks in them, and you stand there, you listen, and they offer you a seat at the table, and you can tell they have enough alcohol rushing through their body to be comfortable enough to not only start inquiring, but start thinking. So, Rohan laddie, have you had your first drink yet? And he looks at you, kind of like up and down, seeing that you look quite young. You have like the beginnings of like stubble on your hair, like on your chin, kind of patchy everywhere else. But have you had your first drink, boy?
I have. You know, generally when you're being trained by the Riddermark, that we don't really care for such proprietaries as most Gondorians and other humans do. You know, alcohol at a young age isn't that uncommon.
Indeed, indeed. Well, if it's all the same to you, and he snaps his finger. Hey, come and bring this lad a drink. It is on King Bard. And they pull out like a couple coins, and in fact, everybody in here were buying everybody around, and they actually pull out a few silver coins and a gold coin from their pouch, and they come and everybody's merry and joyous, and they begin basically toasting everyone to King Bard, the Dragon Slayer. For all of you here in this land, your lands are kept safe because of our king, because of us. That dragon, those dwarves weren't able to do anything about them, but it was the black arrow from our king that smote that dragon. Everybody here, that wealth that comes from that mountain is our right to be able to have. Our city of Dale is built stronger than ever. Esgaroth is successful as well. And I will say, we will keep it that way, right? And everybody's just like, yeah, like, King Bard. Like, everyone's like pretty happy and pretty gung-ho. Even like some of the foreigners from the east seem, like okay with like what's going on. Now tell me, lad. You say your king is good. You say your king is doing what he can to bring together a divided Rohan, you say.
Aye, that he is. Admittedly, I can't see him ever fighting a dragon like King Bard did, but...
Indeed, indeed. But while you're on your way up there in Dale, if you ever get the chance to meet our good king, he's always out amongst the people. He is the people's king. And if you have the opportunity to see him, maybe you can take some notes back to your king. And perhaps Rohan will be great once more.
Aye, I'll have to hope so.
Indeed. The day kind of draws on a little bit, and they get up and they kind of drunkenly walk out. If you want a place to stay for the night, the tavern here, they have rooms out in the back. You just ask them. Again, it's on King Bard. And they toss you actually 2 silver pennies to stay for the night.
Excellent.
Everybody kind of clears out as it gets late. You can tell people are off and about going to either their rooms, but the one thing and the one person that stays, I'm going to have you make a perception check for me.
Okie dokie. A 3.
A 3.
Not good.
You have increasingly become quite uncomfortable in this loneliness, and you get up, and as if to find, any kind of camaraderie, all these days on the road alone have kind of gotten to you. And so you basically get yourself to the table where there is one person sitting, and it is a man with a hood up, and he is smoking a pipe. He has what looks to be feathers on himself, and you sit down, and you immediately begin to engage him in conversation without even understanding like who this person is. How do you wish to approach him?
Well, it looks like we're the only ones who are left.
Oi.
Everyone else seems to have better things to do.
Better things indeed, young boy from Rohan. Theodric, is it?
Aye. And your name, my good sir?
Those who come here and forth call me Law. I am a man of the wild. And, for the right price, I can be hired as a guide. You seek Dale, that is correct.
Correct.
Well, you've done good to make your way this far, but I don't know what you've been told. But the nether marches aren't quite as safe as some may seem, and he kind of like gestures out the door to the two red-cloaked men as they're leaving. My services are here. If you wish to hire me, do so. I leave tomorrow.
Okay. And what would your services cost?
Well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? Perhaps, we can make a trade-off.
You have my interest.
If you give me information about where you come from and the people, what they are experiencing, I will tell you all that I can about the Nether Marches. I will tell you all that I can about the Daelins as far as I know. For a little bit of information about what is going on in Rohan and in the southern regions. There's a darkness that is coming, and I can feel it in my bones.
Can I make would it be insight check?
Insight check, absolutely.
I got a 17.
17. This man seems like he has information. The things that he's saying don't seem to be like he's like one of those like random people on the street like haggling, like trying to be like, hey, like if you like, I have like evil intentions, but he seems genuinely curious. Like you have piqued his curiosity from this. The nice thing is you haven't had too much to drink, and so your mind is kind of with you. Your wits are about you, but
okay.
He seems not necessarily aggressive, but he definitely, you can tell, doesn't have a ton of social skills.
Okay. That seems like a fair deal.
Well, the sooner the better. When would you like to depart?
Well, I'm just waiting on my mates, so, how long's it been since I spoke to the dwarf?
It's been probably a good 6 or 7 hours.
Okay, and it's about nighttime, yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It's not quite dusk, but probably about twilight.
Okay, well, we'll leave in the morning after I pick up my rations from the innkeeper, if that's fine by you.
Fine by me. I look forward to our conversations. And he kind of douses his pipe, and like there's like an ashtray, and he kind of like daps it, and like the ashes fall out, and he stands up and he leaves out the front door. You make your way over to the bar, and the dwarf, he looks up at you and says, "The room is on King Bart." And he says, "Let me show you to one of our finest quarters." And you follow him kind of into like a back hallway. The rooms here are pretty nice. He leads you into one that is empty. It has kind of a small bed and cot. And he mentions that there is actually a stable not too far away. And basically these bardings, they gave you enough coin for about 2 or 3 nights. However, you can take some of those coins to stable Broderick as well in order to help him do that.
Okay. Well, obviously I pay for my room for the night, and I pay however much it is to stable Broderick for the night.
So it's going to be 2 silver pennies. So
oh, perfect. They gave me the perfect amount of change.
Exactly. Silver. So for those of you who don't know, in D&D, gold tends to be the main currency. It's silver in this, and so 20 silver pennies is the equivalent to 1 gold coin. So those bardings bought a lot of drinks for people. So yeah, it's good. It's pretty much died down. There's a couple of individuals that are talking, but they look like they're about to leave for the night. And then the night happens, and you finally, under a very fluffy down blanket and pillow, are able to rest into a dark and dreamless sleep.
Excellent.
The morning arises, and it's probably about a good couple hours into the morning, so we're probably looking at about like 8 or 9 a.m. And you clean up, you pack everything up, and you go out to the main portion of the tavern. And the gentleman that you had met before, Lore, is there. He is dressed in a very similar garb, but except this time his hood is completely drawn back. So Lore, some of his defining features is he looks to be about a late middle-aged gentleman, dirty from travel, but he's got this blackish hair with a little bit of gray peeking out there. One thing that you do note that's a little bit interesting is he has a bird droppings on his back left shoulder. Not quite Radagast style bird droppings, but he's got bird droppings on his shoulder. And he equipped on his left hand, as if used almost kind of as also a walking stick, is a great spear. It's this huge, long spear that you can tell he uses for all kinds of things, whether it's fishing, hunting, or protecting himself as well. He's got a backpack on and what looks to be completely full of rations. You go and you collect your meat, and you're able to pack it all away. And so now these are rations. These are not going to expire anytime soon. He basically, the two of you start making your way into the wilderness. The weather itself seems to have passed for the most part. You experienced the greater part of it early on. You have Lore. He begins to speak to you. Your journey up through Ravinian, I'm sure it was relatively uneventful, is that correct?
Kind of. I almost got lost in the Mirkwood, but
Oh!
aside from that, yeah.
Well, you would be good to know that we are not going to be making our way towards the Mirkwood. We are going to make our way more along the river running, and as long as we are on its eastern borders, we won't have to deal with any shadow that exists within. Especially since the Battle of the Five Armies, the orcs have scattered mostly around, well, at least around Erabor. But there are evils that do linger within the Greenwood. So tell me, why do you seek... Simple celebration doesn't seem enough to leave Rohan.
That is true. I am seeking the counsel of somebody who's wise. And unfortunately, there aren't that many people who fit the bill in Rohan.
Wise? Such as diplomats, perhaps? Do you seek someone who has the answers? Because if that's the case, you could have gone to Minas Tirith. Minas Tirith has quite a few books and scholarly ledgers, and you're thinking to yourself, it's like, I don't do a lot of reading in my time. But what kind of things do you seek? What kind of wise advice do you seek up in Dale?
Well, they say that there were two wizards involved with the desolation of Smaug, and I'm hoping that maybe one of them, or perhaps someone else, who would know of them, will be there at the celebration.
Well, if your sources that I find were correct in finding that, you will find many a wise folk there in Dale. In fact, I have had the acquaintance of a few of them myself. The dwarves of Erabor, even King Dain himself, King under the mountain, I have spoken with quite a bit. Those who are regional lords in the area, I also do know. I seek counsel. I might not have the advice to be able to help you in whatever you are searching for, but I at least have the skills to be able to take you there.
And you have my thanks for that.
Absolutely. As you walk, you notice that this land is actually quite beautiful. There's lots of green pasture. It's a relatively low land and hilly, and you can see off to the right side there is a forest as well. The forest itself doesn't seem nearly as big, and but you notice that lore is taking you away from that direction. So you're not necessarily going north on the Redwater, which is the river that goes north up to the Iron Hills, but you're really trying to stay close to the river running. As far as you're hugging the river pretty close and not going too far into the middle of the Nether Marches, as it were. I'm going to have you make a... what kind of check would this be? I'm going to have you make a riddle check for me.
Ooh. 7.
You continue to walk and you continue to wonder, and there's this puzzled look on his face. The things that he is saying, and he doesn't have a horse, first of all. So you guys are making your way by foot. So Braddock is walking next to you as he's leading you forward. Something doesn't seem right, and you can tell that he is constantly scanning the skies and kind of like making like glances all around him, as if like he's constantly being perceptive of something, as if he's some kind of there's this awareness about him.
Okay. What seems to trouble you?
In order to survive for as long as I have out here in the wilderness, you have to be forever perceptive. And he begins to like blow his fingers, kind of in almost like this silent. It's strange. It's like super high pitched, like to the point where it's like your ears can barely. And actually, it startles Baradarok quite a bit. But as he does so, a giant falcon swoops down onto his shoulder, and he says, "This is also my friend here. He's also helped me to survive. My eyes alone and my wisdom of these lands are well known. But it is thanks..." And he kind of like pets like on the head a little bit, and he pulls out something out of like his jacket, and he feeds it to this bird. "We've been together for quite some time, and nothing happens in the marches without me knowing about it." And he begins to kind of chirp as if talking to this hawk. And fortunately, because of my friend here, I never have to go hunting for myself. Isn't that nice? Yeah, this hawk is huge. It's enormous. Like, think of, I don't know how familiar you are with like bald eagles, but this thing is like eagle status. Like, it's big. Not like eagles of the Misty Mountains big, of course, but big for a hawk. And he says, as we follow this river, you can be well aware that you are in good hands. But I've kept my part of the bargain, at least up until this point. Tell me, what is your, not your given name, but your surname?
I'm Theodric Dowenson, but most people call me Theodric the Grimborn.
Theodric Dowenson. I'm not quite familiar with that name, but the Grimborn, that piques my attention. Tell me, why do they call you the Grimborn, Theodric Dowenson?
Just Grimlock seems to follow me around.
Does it now?
It's a bit of a, some people claim that I'm cursed, but
Cursed.
it's not much.
I knew that these days were growing dark, but hearing that there are cursed individuals from Rohan, now this is something that is news to my ears. Cursed as in how? Is there dark sorcery about? Or have you done something? Has
Just
something
poor luck, I
befallen
assume.
you?
Just poor luck seems to follow me around. Dark fates to the people I care about.
Well, fortunately, with me, you have not much to worry about. As mentioned before, I have eyes everywhere. And you leave Rohan in order to seek answers to these poor fates. Is that correct assumption?
Partially. There's also, visions of my own fate that I would like explained. Whether they're just flights of fancy or something more.
Visions how? How hard do you keep these visions close to your chest? How many people know of these?
I've spoken to my good lord Esmond, who raised me about them, and I'm afraid that the ideas of prophecy and magic and fate's not our own is a foreign concept to most in Rohan. No,
It's a
in
foreign
Rohan
concept to most.
I in Rohan we believe that a man's fate is his own to decide, and that prophecy doesn't exist. But these dreams continue to haunt me, and they have for years.
I find it's not the wisest thing to dive too much into dreams, but if these dreams, you say, are prophetic, perhaps it is important to seek those who are wise. There are those in Dale that could perhaps help enlighten you on some of your goings-ons, some of your visions. If I were to tell you something, could you keep a secret? Make a persuasion check for me.
That is a nat 20.
Theodric Doinson, the Grimborn. What do you know of dark magic?
Pretty much nothing. The ideas of magic and wizards and all those sorts of things are really only really told to children of Rohan as flights of fancy and, tales told by a campfire.
Tales indeed. Tales linger here and there, especially down this river. Word from the east, word from the west, word from the north and the south. Yes, there are times of peace here, but I do fear that there is a growing darkness. In the keep of Dol Guldur. There were wise folk not too long ago that banished a darkness. The nature itself tells me these things. I'm close to the birds of the air, the squirrels of the trees, the rabbits of the plains. They whisper things. The grass, the leaves, the wind whispers things. There's a dark omen, a dark place, a place devoid of hope. And I fear Dol Guldur, deep below. The forges of slavery are once again at work. The evil that was banished from there not too long ago never completely left. Theodric Doinson, the Grimborn. Do any of your visions have anything to do with such things as dark magic? Does any of this ring true to your ears?
I'm not sure. My visions show me of a dark tower within screams of the damned, as well as an orc, ancient and veteran, aiming a wicked bow at me before my life is snuffed out. Whether this has anything to do with the fortress of Dol Guldur, I can't tell you.
And these are consistent, you say. For how long?
Almost all my life.
You have great fortitude of mind. Visions such as these would drive the average man mad. The fact that you've made it even into your young adult years, with a peace of mind, and from what I can tell, with a generous heart, is quite impressive indeed. Those qualities are what are going to serve you well going towards into the future. I can't speak of perhaps safety and what these dreams would bring, but I do think that they are worth exploring. They are worth seeking answers. And, in time, perhaps we can truly unite Middle-earth, starting with Wilderland, to keep the darkness at bay. But I do fear that time has not yet come, and I do think that answers will be continued to be revealed to you, Theodric. You have come much farther from home than the vast majority of people have traveled in their entire lives. It's quite impressive indeed that you have made it this far, with nothing but, and he points to your map and your courage. You guys continue to walk on further. A couple of days pass. You still are along the river, but you can tell that as you make your way up into the Dalelands and along the river running, there are more hills that are beginning to form. And you come across a very slightly wooded area with a fortified hill. This is the ruins of what looked to be some kind of old town. It doesn't look horribly dilapidated, but it definitely looks like that it was a town that was abandoned some time ago. And you begin to settle down there. And Lore, he looks to you and says, "You rest up. We are still about 6 days' travel away. But this next part of the journey is perhaps the most dangerous. At this point, it's us and wilderness. And very few, being in the center of the Nether Marches, very few of Bard's patrols come down through the center of these lands. We must be careful, we must be alert. But we shall set up camp for the night, and I'll see what we can do to try to get us some food." And so you make your way up atop this kind of hill. It gives you this really nice vantage point, and as the sun begins to set and the dusk comes onto Middle-earth and in the Nether Marches, there's this beautiful red glow that casts along the beautiful hills. Something about it is a little bit reminiscent of Rohan to a degree. And you can see far down the road, very far off into the distance, you can see the Iron Hills rise to the east. With your back to the Mirkwood across the running river, you just kind of take in just everything that you've experienced and what you've had. And, this journey that has seemingly taken so long. And the fact that you've traversed it in such a quick amount of time, maybe with a scare here or there, you kind of have this hope about you. And you begin to sit down and you get a fire going, and you start to prepare your food for the day. You start to tend to your steed, and everything seems finally at peace. You feel not alone. You feel the sense of awe and wonder about this beautiful land of Middle-earth and this beautiful north. Some time passes, and Baradorok, he kind of nestles down, and with you guys and Lore, he actually brought a tent, so you were able to pitch a tent and kind of get a little bit of shelter under some trees. And you're just kind of enjoying the fire. A night has definitely settled amongst the land, but as you sit there kind of staring into the fire, I'm going to have you make a perception check for me.
13.
13. It's quiet, but not completely quiet. There are some night ravens that have begun making calls off in the treetops, and you can tell that like some of them are starting to flutter away. You focus really close at the fire, and you begin to see your home. The people that you care about, the people that brought you up. Specifically, you see Esmond. He seems kind of grim as ever, but he kind of gazes back to you in the fire and gives you a small smile. He looks like he's aged a bit too. You see a young boy standing next to him. And you picture this boy as what Eomund, your younger brother, will look like in a few years. And then you think about Maria too. This is the closest thing you have to family in this world, and you know, you've spent some time without them, the longest that you've spent without anybody. And you start to feel kind of this sense of longing too. You pull out your necklace, or not your necklace, your clasp, your horse clasp. You set it down in front of you and you think of your mother. And you pull out the flower out of your bag. And you look at it, pondering what it means. There's a sweet scent that comes off of this flower, and it begins to fill you with comfort as well. And immediately, you're brought back to reality when off in the distance, you hear the sound of a distant howl. What are you going to do with this information?
Okay, Theodric will quickly stand, and, where is Law?
Lore is not here. He went out for some kind of hunt in order to gather food, but he went to the north of your location. So you are positioned on this hill. Unfortunately, your eyes aren't super well trained, and especially with the fire in front of you, you're kind of a little bit of blind going out looking into the night.
Okay. Well, I am going to walk over to Baradarok, and I am going to grab my longsword.
Okay. You go ahead and you pull that out and you grip it firmly as you begin to listen. It is very clear that there are at least the sound of 2 or 3 of these howls, and they seem to be getting closer, and they seem to be surrounding the hill that you are up on top. To the north of you, to the south of you, and directly to the east of you.
Okay. How far away can I see with the fire and everything?
With the fire, you can see actually pretty good in your immediate vicinity. You can probably see about 30 to 40 feet around your campsite with the fire. Looking out into the distance, you can't see much further than another 20 or 30 feet out.
Okay. I'm going to make sure that Baradarok is untied so he can escape and move around as he needs to. And I'm going to draw my longsword and just kind of wait.
Absolutely. You do so and you listen. You keep your ear out and you sense that, something is not right. You can sense movement. I'm going to have you make a survival check for me.
Okay. That is a 17.
17. There's a deep growl off to your left, off to the north. You're looking east at this moment. And I'm going to have you roll for initiative.
Okay. That is a 7.
7. So, first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and set up this little battle map that we got here. Maybe. I believe in you. Why are you together? There we go. Okay. So currently, you are situated up on the top of this hill. So I'm going to go ahead and place you here on the far edge of this fire. Baradarok is going to be off here to your right, to your right. And you immediately come to the attention that there is a creature from this general direction, and you see popping out of the shadows what looks to be a wolf. It's a large wolf. You've seen wargs in your time. This isn't a warg, but it is a wolf that has made its way, and it is snarling, and it looks very, very hungry. Yes, so you rolled initiative for me. What is your initiative?
It was a 7.
I'm going to have you, because you are not mounted for Baradarok, go ahead and roll initiative for him as well.
How do I do that?
So for him, you're going to go ahead and just take the dex modifier, essentially. So you roll a d20 and then add the dex modifier for it.
Okay, d20. And my dex modifier is... Wait, hang on. It was a Baradarok's dex modifier, wasn't it? Not mine. That would be strange. Okay, so that is a 14 plus 1.
Okay, 14 plus 1. Baradarok, before anything else, is immediately alerted to the presence of the wolf. And he kind of stirs and begins kind of going... and just kind of like whinnying and neighing. And you're brought to the attention, and Baradarok actually is going to be the one to move first in this combat. With that, I'm going to have you make any kind of command for Baradarok.
Kyle, I don't think we're on the right overlay according to Forged.
Haha.
I think they're still on the waiting screen.
Nice. Now we're on the right overlay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Thanks
Didn't
for
want
letting
to
me know.
interrupt,
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I'm going to actually do this so everyone can see what's going on. All right. So we got a wolf up top here. We got Baradarok, and we got Theodric. Sweet. And so there's a wolf off to the right, and he is going. What are you going to be doing with Baradarok? What is he going to be?
Okay, Baradarok will be... Let me just pull up his little stat block.
So he is a Rohan warhorse. So he's got a couple more things that he can do than a typical horse is able to. One of which being more hit points than a normal horse, and another which he has the charge ability. So while basically mounted, he can charge into creatures and cause extra damage on your attacks. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, I'm not sure if this would... I don't know if it would count as... I don't think that would count as his move. I was thinking I'm probably going to try and mount Baradarok.
Okay. Well, so he can make his way over to you, and what's going to happen is basically you have to, on your turn, spend half of your movement in order to mount him. But in that time, he can go ahead and make his way over. Would you like him to come in front of you, kind of in like at the base of this hill, or behind you?
Come in behind me.
So he comes in and he begins to nuzzle you. However, as he's doing that, this wolf begins charging and finds his way up right in front of the fire, although you can tell that he is somewhat hesitant, as he seems to have some kind of fear of the flames.
Okay. Is that my turn now?
And now it's your turn, yes.
Okay, so mounting Baradarok just takes half my movement, yes?
Correct.
Excellent. I will mount Baradarok, and with my drawn longsword, actually, will charge the wolf.
All right. So you do so, and so that's going to be Baradarok's action for the turn is going to be the charge. And so he's going to come in, and you're going to clash with this wolf, and you begin swooping down. Are you going to do anything other than attack, or are you just going to go for it?
I'm just going to go for it.
All right. Go ahead and make a longsword attack.
Okay. That is a... Oh, wrong one, sorry. That is a 18 to hit.
An 18 is very much going to hit as you swoop down and you cleave the back of this creature.
And it is 5 damage, because I'm using one-handed with my longsword.
And so with the charge, I believe that adds an additional points of damage. Is that correct?
A rider that takes an attack action during this turn gains +4, so that's 9 damage.
All right. So you basically take this wild wolf and you charge into it, and as Baradarok kind of like stomps down on it, you're able to take your sword and stab into it, dealing a decent amount of damage as it yelps as you slash into it. I'm going to have you actually make a contested strength saving throw for me with this thing.
Okay. Is that just a normal strength saving throw?
Yeah, strength saving throw.
That is a nat 20 +4.
Yeah, you're gonna beat him. He falls prone on the ground, and Braddock's basically on top of him, stomping on him. So you can go ahead and use the hooves attack against him as well.
Ooh. Hooves is... How do I run that off my...
Yeah, just go ahead in the bottom left corner. There's like the dice roller, and you can select which dice to use, and then just add modifiers.
I don't see what do I have to make that hit?
I think it's 2d4, and then there's a plus.
2d. Here it is. 2d6 +3. Okay. I think
2d6 +3, and in order to make the hit, I believe. Let me pull up the stat block here. That is going to be a +5 to hit.
Okay. So what did you say it was? 2d6?
2d6 +3.
Okay, that is 7 +3. That is a 10.
Nice. Yeah, you begin stomping this wild wolf to death, and it begins shrieking, and you start to hear barking and from the distance, and in your ear, on the wind, you begin to hear, and you are unfamiliar with whatever language this is, but it doesn't seem to just be wolves that are here.
Oh boy.
So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump into the next round of combat. And with that, you can see on the kind of coming up these stairs, there is another wolf that has begun to make the descent as you look, as the fire kind of barely, lights this area up. Fortunately, though, because of everything that had conspired, the wolf isn't going to be able to quite reach you. However, does does a 9 hit your AC?
No, not at all.
Arrows whoosh by you, and it clinks against the stonework that's off to the side. These look very much to be orc arrows.
Oh, joy.
Great. So let me go ahead and really quick add some people to initiative. And with that, I should have rolled these initiatives previously. That would have been really nice. And then... you start to hear a call from down below the hill, and it sounds like and you hear all kinds of what sound to be the call of orcs, like cheering in the background as you hear feet begin to make their way up the hill towards you. Yeah, this is nice. Okay, so which brings us to another roll, actually.
Okay.
So with a natural 20, I'm assuming that's gonna hit. Yeah. Let's see what we're gonna roll here. Oh, it's not a roll. So, okay, the way I'm calculating critical hits in this game is it's maximum damage. So that's what we're going with. And so you are going to go ahead and take 12 points of damage as this arrow comes in and just thunks you off of your horse. I'm going to have you make an dexterity saving throw as you fall off your horse.
That is a 13 on the dex saving throw.
13. You basically slump on Baradarok, but you are currently unconscious.
Indeed I am.
This arrow slings through the night and pierces you right above where your heart is. Not quite striking your heart, but you have fallen unconscious. There is a wolf underneath Baradarok, and there is a wolf coming up the side. And with that, there seems to be a number of creatures that have begun to surround the area below. And what they seem like are orcs. Immediately coming off of the side, you see from the first direction where the wolves were from, Lore makes his way with his great spear, coming out to your rescue. However, it might be too late as a number of orcs begin to just start swarming the bottom of the hill. And as your eyes begin to close, you see a great beastly warg. And riding on top of him is a familiar, aged face.
No.
As he begins to make his way and call out, Bashka Hudajo! And the number of arrows begin to volley towards you. You are currently slumped, so these are going to be made at disadvantage. But it looked to be about a good 6 or 7 orcs are following in its wake, including a couple of orc bows. That's not what I meant to do. I meant to duplicate. Woohoo. Alright. Including a couple of orc bows. These wolves were clearly scouts for some kind of hunting party. Which means I have one more initiative to roll for Lore. Oh, and with that sick 8, 9, 10, he jumps in at a 10 initiative. I thought it was a natural 20. It almost landed on a nat 20. That would have been cool, but Lore is not that cool, so... Alright. Meaning it is now the wolf's turn, so this wolf is going to make his way up. And he's going to make his way about there. He is still afraid of the flames that are up top. But these orc archers have already made their shots at you. And that brings us to Theodric. Go ahead and make a death saving throw for me.
Okay. Where's that gone? Where is that gone?
So it's basically going to be your basically like a Constitution saving throw, essentially.
Okay.
And if you get a 10 or lower, that's a failed save, and on a 11 or up, that's a successful save.
Okay. That is a 10 exact.
10. So that's a first failed death save.
Oh no.
Which brings us, as you begin to hear orcs begin to climb up the hill, some of these orc soldiers begin to move. They all seem to want to file up, however, the side of these stairs, so they're funneling into one location. Meaning that they're pretty stacked on top of each other. And this great orc, this familiar orc on his wolf, he begins to charge forward as well. And he's going to attempt to climb the hill, so he's going to make a dexterity saving throw for that. He jumps up, and he's able just to clamber on about halfway up as this warg begins to crawl its way up the side of the hill. But that brings lore to the table. He comes out wielding his great spear, and he charges immediately into one of the wargs, completely catching it off guard. He's going to go ahead and make his attack at advantage with his great spear, as he stabs it attemptingly into the side. And with a natural 20, I'm rolling a lot of nat 20s. He is going to deal 14 points of piercing damage as he just stabs into it. And then he begins to call, and his hawk leaves his shoulder and begins to start pecking down at this orc that is climbing the hill. And attempting to disturb it and what he's doing. But yes, the wolf is not looking super great right now. Neither of them are. But let's see. I'm going to have, because you had your turn in the initiative, I'm going to have Baradarok on his own movement go ahead and do something. What do you wish to do with Baradarok? So he's got a warg underneath his hooves. If he does he can attempt to disengage. He can attempt to make an attack again. Although by making an attack against the warg on the ground, he does risk throwing you.
Okay. He will attempt to disengage.
Okay. So he does so immediately, and the warg again is prone, and because their turn has already passed, he's not going to be able to stand up this turn. So, hey, that's happening, and then who am I missing? I believe that is the turn of combat. So at the bottom of the round, I'm going to have you make another death saving throw for me.
An 11. Oh, 15, sorry.
15.
Oh, no.
You have one death save success. As Baradarok disengages from the wargs. It's not looking good, though. You can hear all kinds of calls going up, and the sound of scratching climbing up the cliff, and this horrible orc's voice. Yeah, we're just gonna move right on into it. So he's gonna go ahead and make a dexterity saving throw to attempt to finish his climb. And that is going to be a 13, and he tumbles down. And he is going to receive 2 points of bludgeoning damage as he falls down the hill. But the rest of these orcs, they're going to start making attacks. So these two archers are going to fire. Fortunately, Baradarok was able to get you just out of the way of fire, so they're going to start shooting at Lore. First, because he is currently engaged, they need to make a couple in the way checks. And so because he's right up against this wall, how in the way is going to work in this is I roll a d20. If it is, and because he has, I would say he has half cover here. If I roll a 1 through 10, that is going to hit the wall. If he rolls anything higher, the attack's going to be made against him. The first one is going to be a 9, so that does not hit. The second one, so it just chinks right off of the stone wall. Second one, unfortunately, is a 13, so it's going to make its way through. So the attack is going to be made against this arrow, is going to fire into him, and it whooshes off in the distance, clanking in the back. This warg, horribly wounded, is going to turn around and begin to engage. This wolf is going to get to his feet, and unwilling to go any closer to the fire, he's going to attempt to climb this way in order to get around the side, but he's going to have to make a climb test real quick here. And he passes with flying colors at an 18. So he goes and he jumps down, and he is beginning. They now, because they are within 5 feet of each other, have pack tactics for their attack. So both of them are going to go ahead and attempt their attacks on Lore. So the first one with advantage is going to be a 16, which will hit, and then the second one is going to attempt his attack, and that is going to be a 20 to hit. Not natural, but a 22 hit. And so he is going to receive a total of 14 points of piercing damage as these wolves just begin to attempt to tear him to shreds, just scratching, and he's doing everything that he can in order to keep his spear to deflect the blows, but they are landing with surprising agency. So, yeah, he is going to take that damage. Which then brings us to a good old Theodric's turn. Go ahead and make a Constitution saving throw, a death survival check.
That is another success with a 14.
That's what I like to hear. So, and with that, you can also, because you are mounted, Baradorok can move however he wants.
Okay, how does attacks of opportunity work in this? Is it the same as always?
It's the same as always. So if something without disengaging from you, if they attempt to leave your general vicinity, you will be able to get a free attack on them.
Okay, Baradorok is a very smart horse.
I like it.
He knows that things aren't going well. So he is going to make a run for it, and hopefully we can pick up Lore on the way past.
So for this, it's actually a very, very tight squeeze. You're not going to have enough room to do it. You can attempt to climb and make any kind of test, but that's going to be a disadvantage. So that terrain. You can attempt to run this way and leave Lore, or attempt to flee up north and leave Lore. Basically, he is surrounded, and orcs are coming up from the east.
Okay.
Or you can attempt to engage and stomp them, which again, he's going to have to make a Throne Rider save, if potentially.
Okay. So what was it again? 2d6
Yeah,
to
it's a +5 to hit, and then 2d6 in order to inflict damage.
Okay.
Plus
We are
3.
going to try the stomping of the hooves.
All right. First and foremost, I am going to... Well, so you're going to be making this attack with advantage because you are approaching him from the back. He is completely turned around, focused on Lore. But first, before that, I'm going to have Theodric, or I guess technically this would be the horse, make a dexterity saving throw for me. Because Theodric cannot hold on. He would be an automatic.
That is
fail.
a 16.
16. He's able to stomp while keeping Theodric drooped over his back.
Okay, so 2d6. That is a 6.
6. All right.
What is it? +5 to hit?
Well, so it's a +5 to hit for the initial hit roll, and then a plus 3, I think.
Okay, yeah. So that would be a 9, I believe.
All right. And you stomp hard, and so much so to the point where it like pretty much gets this thing to shriek and wail, and it begins turning around to bite, which then brings us to these orcs' turn. So they're going to go ahead and start making their way up. They make their way up to the top on this crumbled staircase. So they're going to have to make, when getting to the top, dexterity saving throws here. So the first one succeeds, so he makes his way up. He's going to go ahead and engage combat there. He is, going to make an attack on Theodric or the horse. So the way that I know D&D is like your creature can like make attacks, but like pick like who they're going to attack. In this case, in this game, essentially, I'm going to basically count it as like an in the way. So on a roll of a 1 through 10, he attacks Broderick. On a anything higher, he attacks the rider. So
okay.
I'm going to go ahead and roll my d20, to which he is going to attack the horse. So he got a 4 on that. So he's going to go ahead and make his sword. He takes out this bent sword and begins to unleash attacks. But with a natural 1, he is going to horribly miss. And Broderick lives to tell another day. The rest of them begin to make their way up. They kind of file in line here. And this guy's gonna go ahead and attempt to make his climb again. So it's gonna be rolling his acrobatics check, and he gets an 18, so he makes his way up halfway on this hill. Which brings us then to the top of the combat. To initiative order. Awesome. Well, I guess technically that was the top of the initiative, as he tried to climb up again because he fell last turn. So he attempted to climb up. That's what he did. These guys are going, these wolves, this one's going to turn around and attempt to attack Theodric and the horse. So he's going to make his first hit check, see if he's going to attack Theodric or his steed. And that is going to be the horse. So he's going to be attacking Broderick with a bite attack. And he is going to get an 18 to hit.
That does hit.
So he's going to go ahead and make his attack, and that is going to be 4 points of piercing damage as he bites kind of the ankles of Broderick. Being stampeded upon is not very fun. And this wolf is going to also attempt to attack with a pack tactics against Lore. And that is going to miss, actually. So he does not get to the Lore hit. These archers are going to start making their way closer. They're going to want to attack here pretty soon. But unfortunately, everyone's got pretty much complete cover, and they're not going to be able to make shots up at this chaos that's up top here. Orcs are going to go ahead and do their thing. A couple of these orcs are going to attempt to climb the side here. This one's going to follow up the stairs. He's going to make his dexterity saving throw. And let's see if he survives that. He gets a 15, so he passes. And these guys are going to kind of follow in line here. And these three are going to start to begin their climb here. They're not going to be able to do a whole ton. which then brings us to the bottom of the round, which brings us... Oh, no, it brings us to Theodric. I totally forgot about him, sorry. Your turn in combat.
Should I not be making another saving throw?
Yeah, you should be making another saving throw.
That is a 15.
15.
That's 3 successes.
You are now conscious on your horse, and you see all of these orcs are surrounding you. You're able to get a vantage point down on the hill here, and you see the same yellow eyes and horrible face. These are the eyes that you have been seeing in your dreams of this terrible ancient orc. And he begins calling all the more loud, Baska Vika Doom! And all of these orcs seem to rally to his calls. Top of the round, he's going to go ahead and attempt to finish his climb. Theodric, though, before the top of the round, what is he doing? Oh, this guy's got to attack. I have one attack to do, but your turn was technically before this guy, so you can attempt to disengage or do something.
Okay. I will attempt to disengage again.
Okay.
Or I should say Theodric will.
You do so. He's going to suffer 2 opportunity attacks. So oh, no, not with disengage. That is a lie. He disengages. Cool.
Okay. Now, the question is, do I leave law and make a break for it? Because this does not look good in any way, shape, or form. Did I end up getting any of my stuff off Theodric when we were making camp, or...
Yeah, I'm just going to assume, like, when you grabbed your longsword and everything, you threw all of your stuff on you. There's still, like, maybe, like, a couple of, like, your stuff hanging back here, but the vast majority of it that was on your person is still on your person. So if you have a backpack here with something in there, it's probably still back there.
Give me a second. 60 feet of movement. Would I be able to take Theodric back here, grab my stuff, and just book it?
I would say so. Yeah, you could absolutely do that. So.
Okay, that's the game plan. Like,
you're able to get to here. So you're able to go back, grab your stuff, and then book it in this direction.
Okay.
All right, top of the round to combat. He is going to attempt to make his final climb here. And with a nat 20, he does so with grace. He makes his way up to the top, and he pulls out his bow, and he's on the top of the wall, and you see this gray warg make his way up and snarling. Clearly, this thing is a warg. And with a bow in hand, he is going to begin to draw it and attempt to make an attack over the top of everybody at you. There's going to be one in the way check, so that he has to make, which is essentially this orc. So first in the way, he got a 12, which means it got passed. Second in the way between you and your horse. He's going to get you.
Damn it!
And that was a nat 20. So it's a good thing he didn't roll the nat 20 for like the hit. That was just like to get you. And now his attack against you.
I'm gonna get Boromir.
This could be close. Is a 14 gonna hit?
I have an armor class of 14.
So it's just gonna hit. So he's going to do that, and he's going to roll for his damage, which I guess doesn't really matter, because it's going to bring you down to unconscious again.
Yay.
That's going to be 8 points of piercing damage. Meaning that because that is over half of your remaining HP that you have, that is an instant kill. So... With that, I guess we're gonna close our session. No, just kidding. You wake up and you are now in the stony. What was it? Stony Riverstead. You have not actually departed your on your journey yet up until this point.
I,
You have not actually departed your journey to this point. But you wake up and you have this racking headache. And this is something that's different, something that you haven't experienced, as in usually during these dreams that you have, it's just you. You don't have anybody else, you don't have any other companions typically in that moment. And the dream that you felt was far more vivid than just the general orc and surroundings. This was a battle. This was something that you had experienced deeply, and it kind of shakes you to the core. You rise to your feet, you go down to the main tavern room, and you see Lore standing there, looking up at you as if he, you look shaken. He's going to ask, "It looks like you've seen a ghost or something. Are you sure you're going to be well enough to travel? You look pale. You look horribly ill."
yes, just bad dreams.
I find it's not always the wisest thing to dwell on them. But shall we?
I mean, yeah, let's get going.
And that is where we're going to end our session for tonight. So, Mr. Theodric, Mr. Doomed to Die. Yeah, there was no hope that you were going to survive this. That was very clearly intentional.
Yeah, I noticed by the 9 orcs.
Yeah. Though the one thing though I did not expect from that was the critical from the very beginning to just like bring him down in one shot. I actually expected like some kind of combat to ensue, which Broderick did, so he did a good job. Or
He's a very good horse.
He's a very good horse. But yes, so lots of things to keep thinking about. But currently, Theodric and Lore, they are on their way up to Dale. And hopefully at this point reaching Dale by at least to the early autumn time and getting all settled and everything towards the end of summer. Yeah, this was a good session. So we're figuring out now not only how Valineth has made it to Dale, but also how Theodric has, and we have 2 more characters to go making their way to Dale to get united. Any thoughts on your session, about your character, about things going forward?
He's living up to his name.
Yeah, it's true.
Grim indeed. Just
Grim
all up.
indeed.
Seems to follow him around.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I do want to mention for all of those that are watching. Well, thank you all for actually a very incredibly active chat. I was very surprised. Sorry I wasn't paying attention much to it, but I want you to note one of the reasons that we do these one-shots is so we can develop personalities of the characters outside of just, how do I fit in the party? And I feel like being able to go through things, being able to, put people in situations that they have to do some critical thinking where it's just them making decisions, well, I think play a very interesting role when they get together eventually to become a party. And I'm not saying that, by this, obviously, this was a kind of scripted, planned thing, but there is a very real chance to die in these, the vast majority of it. So, for example, getting lost in Mirkwood. He maybe could have just, never showed up in Dale. He could have just stayed lost in Mirkwood. But, so there is a lot of, those types of things that are happening. But I want you to all know that next week we are actually diving into our next character, Jalen. She is a woman of Bree. And so we're going to be making our way all the way to Eriador, kind of away from Rohan, kind of away from Eastern Wilderland, Middle Earth. So that should be really exciting as far as that goes. Do you have anything to add, Australian? Anything you want to tell the people out there? Is there a place
Um,
where people can find you? Anything like that?
Mostly you'll just see me active in the Discord, so
Perfect.
you're welcome to talk to me there. And one thing I do want to say is I think it was Forged in the chat being like, wow, Baradarok, what an interesting name. It means brown horse in Sindarin. It literally means brown horse. So maybe not as an exotic and interesting as it first sounds.
It's
But
exotic because it's hard to pronounce for me. At least it's hard to
true,
remember for me. So
true. But
maybe I
he's a
should just
good
call him
horse.
Brown Horse.
I called him Baradarok, which means brown horse.
It's great. It's great. That's awesome. And I love how you're also supporting the Fantasy Forged merch. That's awesome too.
Rep the
Um,
shirt.
yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
You can
And
naturally find all that merch
oh
on
yeah,
fantasyforged.com.
absolutely, absolutely. We also have a sponsor. You can support them with a Japanese snack box too. That's also something cool. But thank you so much for joining this stream. I mean, this is kind of a taste of what to look forward to. And these one shots are always interesting because it really is like two people role playing off of each other and trying to figure things out. Especially like that whole journey section where it's like you don't have anyone to interact with. It's just kind of what are the decisions I need to make? Where do I need to go? And also, just throwing a combat in as well. But we're going to try our best to end it around this time, around 9:30 or 10:30 your time, just because I know everybody, needs to go to bed early. So if we ever get to a point where it's just like it feels like a weird place to stop, just know that that's the reason. We're just trying to kind of stick to a schedule. So yeah, we're just gonna continue moving forward. Join us tomorrow for Dain with the normal Fantasy Forge content for Thursday and Friday, and then we also have Everlast again on Saturday. So join us for that, and we very much look forward to seeing you all later. And may the road go ever on and on. If I have my mouse somewhere, oh, there we go. Bye.